Nice to see you. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Right off the top here, tell me, what were the dreams from your father? What is that referencing?
Well, you know, I have a mixed-up background. First thing people ask me is, where'd you get that funny name? Barack Obama. Although you had a top 10 list, but you missed a couple.
Yeah, ways to mispronounce
Right.
Barack Obama.
I mean, there was Alabama and Yo Mama. You know, my father was from Kenya, from Africa. And he was part of that first generation of students that came to study in the United States, and he met my mother, who was from Kansas. And what the book references is sort of what his ambitions were coming to this country and some of the disappointments he went through and sort of the difficult times that my parents went through as people of different races and backgrounds and cultures.
When you were a child, did you know that you were trying to emulate his wisdom, or it was not until later that you realized what he was teaching you?
Lyndon Johnson, who I don't quote that often, had a great saying. He said, every man is trying to make up for his father's mistakes or live up to his expectations. And I think that I was probably trying to do both. I think in some ways he made a lot of mistakes, especially with his family. And I've tried to compensate for those, but he was a very bright man and a very somebody who accomplished a lot, and so I think I was trying to live up to those as well.
So it's interesting, good and bad, they all provided lessons for you.
They all provide lessons for you.
And you, as a kid, you were in Hawaii?
I was in Hawaii, and so I think the main reason my wife married me was because I still have family in Hawaii, and she figured
she's on vacation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, she's from Chicago. She's thinking, I've been looking for warm weather for a while.
February. And let's talk about was I right about you've been in the state senate for?
I was in the state senate for 8 years, and then I decided to run for the United States Senate. And people's general estimation was he'd probably be the best U.S. senator. The guy's done good work, but he's got no money, he's got no organization, and nobody can pronounce his name, so it's not likely he's going to win.
But the thing about your name, it's easy to pronounce, and it's cool.
Well, that's what I think.
Yeah,
that's what I think. You know, there were some advisors who told me to change my name.
Really?
Yeah, and somebody suggested Cat Stevens, for example.
Yeah.
I decided that wasn't going to work.
Other than usually the mayor of Chicago is named Daley.
Right.
I know very little about Illinois politics. Jane Byrne, I guess, was in there for a while. And then, now, was there a guy who was running for Senate, maybe an incumbent, maybe not, I think a Republican, and he had a problem because he and his wife would go to strip clubs and have sex?
Well,
now, did I dream that, or does any of this ring a bell?
There were some issues, some allegations.
Yeah.
But we didn't touch that stuff.
I see.
We took the high road.
Now, this is who you were running against?
He dropped out. You know, the Republicans, you know, they seem to have a lot of fun given all their moral value stuff. They enjoyed themselves.
It sounded like fun to me.
Yeah.
But he was the seated senator, is that correct?
Well, no, it was an open seat. So we were running against each other. He dropped out, and then the Republicans for about a month and a half couldn't find anybody out of the 12 million people in Illinois to run against me. And so they finally brought in this guy from Maryland, Alan Keyes, who's a pretty intense guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that didn't work out too well for them.
And now you one of the keynote speakers at the Democratic Convention, and your star is certainly beginning to rise.
Well, you know, it was a great honor speaking at the Democratic Convention. It's a big crowd.
Yes.
You know, there are like 15,000 people.
Yeah.
So I walked in, and you know, it was packed, and people with signs and funny hats, and you know, there are celebrities. You know, Peter Jennings is down on one end, and Puff Daddy's over here. So I turned to my wife. I said, you know, this is kind of a big speech.
Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of nervous, and my wife's wonderful. She held my hand and looked me in the eye, and she said, "Honey, don't screw it up."
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, that's exactly what you need.
What I needed.
Absolutely. All right, we got plenty to talk about. I want to, and I don't know if this is even in your jurisdiction as a senator, but that Pistons-Pacers game. Oh,
that was a problem.
I was surprised to learn that currently there are no African-American senators other than yourself. You're the current one now.
When I get sworn in, I will be the only one.
That seems hard to believe now, isn't it?
Yeah, we need to make some progress on that front, and there's going to be a gentleman joining me, Ken Salazar, who will be the only Hispanic United States senator. So, we're going to have a small caucus.
And how many African American senators have we had in the history of?
We have had 5. There were 2 during Reconstruction. They were basically appointed by the Union armies, and then there have been 3 who were elected.
Right.
So we've got progress to make on that front. But one of the nice things about my campaign was that people, I think, anticipated me just getting votes from the black community or just from the city, and we ended up winning in places like Iroquois County and Kankakee County and Sangamon County, and as you might anticipate, there aren't a lot of African Americans in those places.
Well, and I'm guessing that there are more congressmen, African American congressmen. But does this, in the African American community, does this have the kind of disenfranchising effect that one might think, that the representation at the Senate level is small?
I think it's a problem. Part of the problem is that you've got to run statewide, and as opposed to just these congressional districts. And when you run statewide, there are no states in the union where African Americans are majority. You've got to raise a lot of money, and African Americans oftentimes have difficult times raising the kind of money that's needed for these TV ads. So it's a challenge, but I'm hopeful that as a consequence of my election and the terrific faith that the people of Illinois placed in me, that we're going to be able to improve on that around the country.
Good for you. Good for you. What do you think of things since the election? First of all, did the election surprise you? Did the Democrats make mistakes? Did everything go right and it just didn't work, or what happened?
No, I think we made some mistakes. Look, you've got to give credit. George Bush had one of the best political teams that's ever been put together. They ran a very smart campaign and a tough campaign, and we made some mistakes. There's no doubt about it. I think John Kerry picked up steam right at the end. But we probably lost some opportunities.
What were the mistakes?
Well, it's always easy to second guess. I think probably even John would acknowledge that windsurfing is that you probably want to play softball or something. Just to kind of relate to folks more.
Have you met the president? You must know the president.
Well, he called me. He was very gracious after the election. He gave me a call, and we both agreed that we had married up. And then he invited me over to the White House, and we had breakfast with Dick Cheney and Karl Rove, and it was a real fun time.
Yeah, it sounds like. Yeah, it sounds like Mardi Gras. And what is the status now? The Senate is pretty much hamstrung by the president. Is that?
Well, look. I mean, you've got Republicans are in charge of the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. So, in terms of sweatshirts, you're going to have to go talk to them. I can't help you. I don't know why these prices are so high.
What do you do as the new guy? What is that?
Yeah, they make you sharpen pencils.
Yeah.
And,
is there any kind of indoctrination? Are there seminars or?
Well, we had an orientation last week, and they described for you, how the process gets started and how to hire up a staff. The biggest challenge, though, I think for somebody like myself, is just making sure that you're answering the mail and answering people get angry if you're not responsive.
Right.
I mean, they want to know your position on Medicaid and Medicare, but the most important thing they want to know is when they send a letter about their Social Security check that somebody's responding to them.
Right.
So we're going to have to spend a lot of time just focusing on that and folks back home in the state of Illinois.
What do you know about Colin Powell, Secretary of State? Did he quit or was he pushed out?
Well, what's clear is that he was not the advisor that really had the ear of the president. And I think people would acknowledge that generally, that the president had more confidence in Condoleezza Rice and Donald Rumsfeld, and I'm sure he felt frustrated over time. He had a different vision of how our foreign policy should operate. Now, I don't begrudge the president his right to hire the person that he thinks best represents him. And the nice thing is now when Condoleezza Rice goes overseas, I don't think people are going to second guess. They know that they're talking to somebody who's got the president's ear.
What happened at that basketball game in Detroit? Honestly. I said this earlier in the week. From looking at it, I have to blame. There's two things that I think are responsible: the fans and being drunk. Because everything was okay. Everything was basketball until Ron Artest gets pelted with a beer. Then that's not basketball.
Yeah.
And I know they're professionals, supposed to rise above it and supposed to just look the other way. But my God, you know, who really puts up with that, honestly?
Yeah, nobody except politicians. I mean, I think it looked like Washington. It was a melee. You know, I played basketball, and you know, your emotions get riled up, and but you know, I think everybody's got to step back. I think it is an example of a culture generally where you know, people are quick to anger, and people, I think, take out their frustrations on each other in ways that aren't appropriate, and I think both in our politics, in our sports, in our day-to-day interactions, you know, we should be able to be a little more agreeable.
Right.
Yeah.
And will something be done to change it, or will we just wait until something really, really, really ugly happens and then it will change automatically?
You know, I think part of what has to happen is people have to set a tone. You know, one of the things I'm proud about in our campaign is we didn't run negative ads. You know, what we said was, we can disagree with somebody, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. And I think that part of what happens in our politics and in other walks of life is that we spend a lot of time vilifying and denigrating people who don't agree with us. And that's something that our children pick up on. They see that on television, they hear it in their leadership, and they start acting that way.
Paul and I run negative ads.
Against each other?
It just doesn't make any difference. We don't care. But now the other thing that I found disturbing about watching, I didn't see it during the game, I just saw the endless replays of that episode. I was watching it and I just couldn't help but say to myself, that's kind of cool. You know, it actually, you know, it sort of was.
Yeah.
It's a little different form of basketball.
You sort of like that?
Yeah, it's just like, and then at the end when the big tubby guy comes out and just says, all right, somebody poof me, and then Jermaine O'Neal comes out and just, okay, boom. It was kind of cool, don't you think?
Dave, this is what I was talking about. You're contributing to the coarsening of the culture.
Now listen, too late. There's no surprise there. Now listen, make me a promise now, and you know what I'm talking about. When you run for president, whenever you run for president, and I have the feeling, and you have the feeling, just you come back and see us then, all right?
Well, I hope you invite me before then.
All right, but we will. But when you make the run, you come back and see us.
All right, a pleasure.